Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another edition of these university debates. My name is Godwin Toko, your host for this show and the community show webinar. We thank you that you always join us in these discussions. Today we have some wonderful students with whom we are going to have a very powerful discussion. We're going to discuss the issue of education and the state of education in this country called Uganda. We are going to get their perspective. And from these discussions, we eventually get the next best debaters like we've done over the years. So without wasting more time, I'm going to allow my panelists to introduce themselves, tell us where they're coming from, tell us who they are, and they think or two about themselves. So I'm going to begin with Mudea Robinson. Mr. Mudea, tell us more about yourself.
Well, thank you very much. Let me confirm if you can hear me well.
Yeah, sure thing.
You're hearing me well?
Yes, we are.
Okay, my name is Muhindo Mdea Robinson. I come from School of Education. I offer Bachelor of Science with Education, and I'm in year 3. So I'm going to talk about the dialogue for today, which is having a topic which reads, the foundation of every state is the education of its youth. And you're asking the state of Uganda. First of all, I'd like to first explain what education means.
Mr. Mudea,
yes?
We just hold it there. We are still in the introductions. So I'll move to the next panelist. I'm going to request that you mute. I move to the next panelist and I'll get back to you. So let's hear from Mr. Waiso Augustine.
Thank you so much, everyone. Like how they have told you, I'm Waiso Augustine, student at Mountains of the Moon University, pursuing a bachelor's in science of agriculture, and actually currently in my year 2. Can I have the question again? Because I was on and off because of network. I did not hear well what the question was.
There was no question. There was only you introducing yourself. And I think, unbeknownst to you, you have done that very well, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So is Namara Sharon with us? Namara Sharon? All right. So we also have 4 panelists. We have 2 now. I am very optimistic that the other 2 will join us. We have Ndungo Edison and Namara Sharon, who are supposed to be joining us. Each of them are having connectivity challenges. Of course, we all know that this is Uganda. But I am very, very positive that they will join us, and then we'll get to hear from them. So, Robinson hinted on this. The topic of our discussion today is the foundation of every state is the education of its youth. What's the state of Uganda's education? So that's the question we are going to ask these young people to elaborate for us. They're from the Mountains of the Moon University, and we're going to have the discussion with them. So without wasting more time, let me get to Waswa. Waswa, what do you understand when they say education? What comes to your mind in this? Just try to define for us education as you know it in your own terms.
Okay, thank you so much, the moderator. Once again, Waiso Augustine, Mountains of the Moon University. And if to term the term education, education is simply studying or going through a system of learning that makes the person acquire new knowledge, or call them the skills. And at the end of it all, after acquiring the skills and the knowledge, this person is awarded by, maybe it can be a certificate or any other document that affirm that this person is educated. Thank you.
Namara Sharon, are you here now? Please introduce yourself.
I'm Namara Sharon. I'm a year 3 student pursuing a bachelor in community development from Mountains of the Moon University.
So, Namara, did you listen to what Waiswa just said about education, his definition?
Yeah.
He says that
I did.
Yeah, so do you think someone can be educated and get some education without even getting a certificate, or get that education from home, in your own view?
Yeah, because education is a bigger concept. Education means a learning and acquiring of knowledge and skills. So it could be either formal or formal education. We're working on informal education. This is the type of education we used to have in the African traditional society, which included a hands-on method whereby the young children, through the socialization process, were taken through a number of activities that their parents thought would be of importance to them. It was basically hands-on method, but it was specialized for boys and girls. That is another type of education. Then we have formal education, where it involves the reading and writing. This is the type of education currently. Uh, that's all I think about education. So you can learn a skill when you don't have a certificate, or you can learn a skill and you get a certificate.
That's wonderful. So let's now turn to Robinson. Robinson, what do you think of what these other two panelists have said about education? Do you have a similar view to what they've said? Do you have something to add? Do you think they are misguided? Over to you, Robinson.
Okay, when I check on what they have given out, the answers are okay, but I also add on and say that education is a transfer of knowledge from one generation to the next. And when you transfer knowledge from one person to another, of course, we expect a change in the behavior. That brings about the learning. So when someone has gone through education, what happens is that he learns and you see that the behavior changes. So of course the behavior has to change positively, and we see the person transforming his community. So that's the view I can give in addition to what they have so far given.
Okay, thank you. So Waiswa, I want to get to you now again. You're receiving an education and not your microphones after speaking. All of you, when you're done speaking, mute the microphone. Aaron, mute your microphone. Okay. So, Waiswa, I want to get it from you now. Do you think the quality of education you're getting at Mountains of the Moon is good quality education? Do you think it is going to change your way of life? It's going to change your behavior? And what do you hope to get generally at the end of this education after your graduation?
Okay, again, I am my brother Bedson, because for him, he got interrupted totally with the network and network issues. So alongside me, that's him, Bedson. I think you'll recognize the rest of us, and then we'll contribute using my account. So with the question you've asked me, that the quality of education we are receiving at Mountains of the Moon, is it of high quality? And is it how is it going to help me on the job market? Oh yes, I will confirm, I will affirm that the education we are receiving is good, but how good is it? How good is it? The education we are receiving in universities, actually, it is more of theoretical knowledge. I started by introducing myself as a person that is doing science in agriculture, actually in year 2. But to my experience, or to my understanding, you're going to find that very few practical classes are conducted. And then even when it comes to these field classes, things to do with that, such that a person has the hands-on skill, these things are totally not in place, and you find we are just studying, we are imparting ourselves with knowledge. You find that actually you're off, totally off, just because you learn more of theory and you don't have much into practice. So to me, the education we are getting, yes, later on paper it's of good quality. They will teach you, you'll score a first-class degree, and then you'll move out with so much joy. But at the end of it all, if we are to look at an angle of going to the field, it is actually education of poor quality. Reason I've already mentioned that it's because you find that the person is not skilled, is not having these hands-on skills the person has not maybe gone into the field to exercise what he has been taught in class. So to me, it is good but bad when it comes to the job.
Okay. Also, I hope that you're reading the comments. Augustine, there's a comment for you in the comment section. You may want to look at that. Allow me to turn back now to Namara. Namara, not just at the university, the whole education you've received as a Ugandan. Over the years, you've studied from, I don't know, whichever, primary, nursery, or kindergarten to where you are now. Do you feel like you've gotten the best education that can make you compete, say in Uganda, in East Africa, in Africa, and in the world market for jobs? Do you think if a Kenyan applied for a job and you applied for a job, they would consider you? Or if they gave you an interview, you would pass because of the education you've received as a Ugandan?
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Sure, you are.
I am.
Yes, you are.
Like you've said, for the education levels I've gone through, from primary up to the level I am, to me, the type of education we are receiving here in Uganda, or I have gone through, would not be the type of education I would wish to have, because it is too much of theory. And when we are in the market, we are looking at the skills. Because from my primary, I would just study theoretical part of the thing. Like I told you, at least the informal education, it was hands-on. If you want to teach a child, you take him to the river, you show him how to fish. But when I reached all the levels, for example, in secondary, we would study history. We are looking at the St. Lawrence Seaway. Then if I look at it, the relevance of the St. Lawrence Seaway and the course I'm doing, as if there's nothing that it impacted on me, though to some extent, but not to a larger extent. Then I look at, for me, I'm a social artist. I do social sciences. Then there are subjects we used to study in ordinary level, like chemistry, physics, and they realize that you cannot manage those subjects, but they still have to pressurize you, waste your time on that. Then you fail them, you go to you feel you've opted for history and divinity. But if they would realize that this person is good in sciences, then they focus on that. Then good in they focus on that. They would be in perfectly, for example, communicator. So you from the start mix up of specialization, because so they overbump you into something, but put something into action. Could you do that? But if it is on paper, we urge. That's why you see, even when they are looking for workers or in the employment section, they ask for experience. So if I receive the experience from the grassroots, because I know there is no school that gives experience. So if they groomed me in my field, I would argue that at least in communication, I have this. In chemistry, I could do this. That's why it's so hurting. People did chemistry, they do physics, they do biology, but still you find these departments are still, they are still badly off, because you even find industrialization, you cannot make even a razor blade for our own. So it is not the type of education I would be proud of. Yes, ideally, I could argue maybe in the leadership sector, but now we are looking at the development, is the economic development. So we look at a number of aspects. Could we look at the industrialization? Can a graduate now like me, can I do anything? I cannot manufacture anything. I could just argue, but I don't have a skill. So I would not wish this type of education I have. So we can now look at which strategies can the education sector bring on board so that we could improve on the education, because the system itself is too much of theory and the skill we are talking about. Like we said, it is acquiring of knowledge and skills. But do we have a skill? Because you find a graduate cannot even make soap of 500. So those are the things that we want at least should be introduced in the system.
Okay, thank you for that submission. Waiswa Augustine, you said which other panelist is with you? Waiswa, do you hear me? Waiswa, if you hear me, you can unmute and then respond to the question I have put forward. All right. In the meantime, let's get back to Robinson. Robinson, people are talking of education not being practical, that they want education to be practical, that they want not just to internalize and be told all these theoretical things. That is the case right now. What's your take on this? If someone is, for instance, a lawyer, and they're supposed to learn theory, if someone is doing agricultural economics, and they're supposed to learn the theory and then translate that theory into the practical aspect of education, what's your take on this?
Okay, what my panel is talking about is right, because even at school they have what we call practicals, because they know that after studying theory we're supposed to have a practical. But the challenge is that the practicals we handle them for a very little time. You find that the practical lesson is given just like 80 minutes, but the theory takes from morning up to evening, apart from only 80 minutes, like once in a week. So what they're talking about is right. The theory that we study in class is also relevant, but we should always learn how to do things, especially me, I'm a student offering a Bachelor of Science with Education, specifying in physics and mathematics. If I'm going to learn about electricity, then automatically they should take me where electricity is. They talk of resistors, I see them, so that I can really know that I'm studying. But you find that a student will only know how to calculate the resistance of a circuit, but when they take him to the real wiring of the electricity, even he can't identify a resistor. So this is what they're talking about. The education system of Uganda needs to be changed so that more of practical lessons should be on the timetable than the theory. However, the government is also trying its level best to implement this, basing on the new lower secondary curriculum. It's just in its morning stages. I think by the time the implementation goes on very well, we shall be able to see this change in the education system of the country. Thank you.
Okay. So if you are to make these changes, yeah, if you are to advise the government, okay, we know there are the changes for the lower primary, but if you have to advise the government as a university student at the university level, what changes should they make in the education?
So in the education at the moment, we advise that the teachers themselves who are going to implement the curriculum themselves, they need to be oriented, because you can't have a change in the curriculum and you come and orient the teachers for 2 weeks. That one cannot work very well. So at the university level, the teachers are going to teach the students need to have like course units of that new curriculum, so that they can become conversant with it, so that as they go to the field, they go already when they know what they're going to do. But I just see every time you're saying we're going to meet in a certain center for 2 weeks, we're going to learn about the curriculum which has taken years. When they're talking about the change that's going to happen, how can you train it in 2 weeks? The problem lies there. So that's what I'm saying. At least at university level, if Uganda's education is to be very good, the teachers who are going to implement the new curriculum needs to be trained first for some good time, so that they can be able to know what they're supposed to do for our students who are coming, to be able to perform to their best practically, not theoretically. Thank you.
Okay. Ndugu Peterson is still trying to connect. Now that means that I have no choice but to move back to Sharon. So Sharon, now let's get to the serious aspects of this debate. First of all, what do you think are the roles of a parent in educating their child?
What is the role of a parent in educating the child?
Yes.
The role of the parent it starts from the socialization process. We look at as a parent, you're supposed to tell your child what is the relevance of him or her going to school. Like you're laying down strategies. At the end of the day, you have aims and objectives. Because when we were children, we were told if you go to school, you'll get a good job. So we had those aims and objectives that's why we are here to fulfill them. So the role of a parent here is to give you fees, because any project involves the budget and the budget resources. And the resources here we're talking about, we have school fees, we have the materials you're going to use at school. So that is one of the roles they do. Then another role they do, psychologically, they have to be there for you. Then another role is guidance and counseling somewhere. Maybe if you're going off track, because there are times we look at in the journal of education, the teenage comes in, you find some of the other children are involved in sexual acts and what, so they could do guidance and counseling, but most of it all is about the field. Then looking at the current status of Uganda, we are looking at people, most of the families are under the poverty line. They could between people in the rural setting and the urban setting, because you could see as students are going to school, the students in the urban setting tend to pack for their children most of the materials they need. But students from rural settings, they are given materials in inadequacy, meaning the other materials they lack. We look at for girls, the sanitary pads, they don't have enough pens, they don't have enough learning aids, the materials, we look at the books, the pens, the counters, the mathematical sets. So you find the whole system is not good because poverty is becoming an issue. So those are some of the roles parents do in the education of their children. They give them guidance, they provide resources, starting from the basic needs. Psychologically, they are there for them. They help them in choosing for them some, for instance, you've done your senior 4, they could help you to get a combination, a course, they help you out. So those are some of the roles. But every parent would wish to do that. But looking at Uganda itself, poverty is becoming an issue. And you find these parents are not fully exhausting their roles because of poverty as an issue. But that's what most of the parents would do if at all they had children going to school. That's what I think.
Okay. These guys say they have a very terrible network. We hope that it has stabilized. Waiswa, are you there now? Waiswa, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Please use the microphone.
Yes, please, I'm here.
Okay, if you're there,
I'm here, I can hear you.
Is the other panelist still with you? I think he's on his own. Let me first speak to him. Pedison, are you there? Waiswa, you can now mute.
Sorry?
Waiswa, you can mute. Let me ask Pedison if he's
You're
there.
on and off, you're breaking.
I'm saying first mute. Let's hear from Pedison.
You're on and off. I didn't get what you're asking.
Pedison, are you there? Pedison? Okay. Namara, are you there still?
I'm still on. I'm on.
Sorry, I meant Waiswa. Sorry, I mixed up the names. Namara, you can mute. Waiswa, are you there now? Can you hear me loud and clear? Is it still breaking? Oh Lord, they've gone off. So let's turn to Robinson now. So Robinson, I want to understand from you the state. What role should the state play in the education of children? Is it a case, is it for us to blame the state if the children are poorly educated?
Okay, education, somebody to be educated has to be a combined effort of several stakeholders. You can't say that the state itself alone has to take the responsibility. It is a combination of roles of several stakeholders. However, the state has a very big hand in the education of the students. For example, it's the role of the state to see that the children, or I can say the students in the country, are going to school. That's why some parish chiefs, you always see them looking in the villages, looking for those who are not going to school, which means that they want to fulfill their role. So it is their role to make sure that the students are at school so that we don't have people who can loiter around the villages. However, we also have some stakeholders like the parents, like religious leaders and others who can also come in. But the state it also has that responsibility of making sure that its citizens become educated.
So if the state, like the one of Uganda, gives us UPE, gives us USE, make sure that there is peace and stability, what they call oftentimes enabling environment. Have they played their role? Is there any more they can do? Or that for you is good enough? If they do that, we are good to go.
Yeah, the problem with our country is that when we come to issues concerning finance, they are always having challenges basing on the population of the youth in Uganda, because 75% of the youth in Uganda, they are below 30 years, which means we are likely to have most of them attending school. Therefore, the state in provision of the needs for the students to go to school may also have a certain constraint somewhere, but our state has also tried its level-based, because it has introduced UPE in primary schools, it has introduced USE in secondary schools. Even at university level, some of the students, they get state scholarships. We have the government, we have the loan scheme, the higher education students financing board is there to give the loan scheme to students who are needy, which means that the government is also trying its level-based, much as it has not yet done it to the state level. So according to how I'm seeing our government, I think it is trying to make sure that it does its responsibility, because security is there. It is trying to sponsor some students to go to secondary schools and primary. So I think even other problems coming from other problems are coming from us. That's why some of the students are not at school. There we can't blame the government for that. That's my submission.
Okay. Namara, let's talk about the issue of pregnancy. You know that with the schools closed, that has become a very, very serious issue, and one that is crying, is desperate for address, and yet seems not to be addressed. The First Lady says she's surprised that children can only be safe while at school. Is this a case? You said the parents have a role to play. Is it a case of the parents abdicating on their role?
Sharon is also having a problem of network, but I think he's soon joining.
Okay, so that means we are stuck with you, Robinson. So we'll just continue the conversation. So
okay,
I want now to get it from the perspective of the university. Do you feel like
yes,
the government of Uganda has supported universities, especially private universities like yours, enough to enable them offer a good education for someone like you?
The government supporting private universities, I think, does not supported them enough, because since I've already informed you on how I see on my own perspective on how the government is assisting universities, it has helped students in getting like loan scheme, but not all the universities in Uganda are eligible to get students studying on that scheme. It only caters for those ones which are chartered and have specific courses which it sponsors, which means that there are some universities which may not be having the sales courses. Therefore, those ones we can't be able to get students admitted for those courses. Therefore, the government would have not helped them. Universities like Mountains of the Moon, which are chartered, they got benefits because of being a chartered university. That's why the government was able to put in a hand. But to a greater extent, private universities have not been helped as such by the government. That's my verdict.
Okay. So how before we bring in Sharon, what kind of help do you envisage that the government should always render to the private universities that is not that has not been forthcoming?
The private universities have always been taxed. They said that the private universities are the private institutions should again go and register in the ministry. I see that one is still a challenge. So the government should also be lenient on such people so that the institutions can go on, can still continue running. They can still give the institutions some soft loans so that they can be able to run the activities. I hope you're getting me.
Yes, I am getting you, but there's an echo in the background because Sharon is not muting her microphone. Sharon, mute your microphone. Okay, she has done that.
Yeah, I have been saying that the government can help the private institutions by giving them like soft loans so that they can be able to run the institutions very well because of the COVID-19 pandemic which came. it resulted into loss of finance by some institutions. Others were having loans in the banks. I think they have piled up to a certain level where even institutions may not be able to open. Myself, I witnessed some institutions which are closing, especially the secondary schools. You find that a school which was a private school is now turning to become a bar because they are seeing they have no way they can still open. So to me, I wish that the government comes in and helps them, gives them soft loans, or it grants them, like you can get some NGOs which can help so that such schools can continue giving quality education for Ugandans. Otherwise, if they neglect the students from studying, I think the government will not be having a very good foundation. Because when you look at education in this country, most of the people have not yet known the reasons why they go to school. They still need to be pushed. Others still complain of distance. You find that such schools which have closed, most of them are found in rural settings. So the greatest percentage of students in Uganda, most of them, 80%, they come from the rural areas. Therefore, it will be very important if the schools in the village continued operating. So if such schools stop, it means that some of the students that we get from rural areas, others may end up going into other, may end up getting abused either sexually. And you find when students have got pregnant, there are very few who can still need to go back to school. So to me, I wish that the government can come in, help such schools so that they can continue operating, even though they're private. Being private doesn't mean that they are not in Uganda. They are still giving education to our students. Therefore, this is what I can submit in.
Okay, Sharon, I want to get it now from you. Robinson, use your microphone. So Sharon, getting it from you now. When you read about these reports of young girls who have gotten pregnant since the lockdown, it's alarming. I don't know, at least for me, it's alarming. So many young girls across the country in their thousands. The government is being asked to open school so that people go back to school. The government says there's still COVID, you can't open school. The First Lady and Minister of Education says, I am surprised that the parents have so abdicated their role that children can only be safe while in school. This blame game seems to be going back and forth. Who, in your opinion, is responsible for the crisis we find ourselves in with all these young girls getting pregnant and things like that?
Okay, thank you for the question. In my own opinion, like my fellow panelists has said, when we look at the problem, as a social worker, we don't look at the problem, then we make one person responsible. It is all of us, because when we look at the government, we look at the students themselves, we look at the parents and the community. We all play a role in making sure that these girls do not get pregnant, because we know the associated effects which are going to affect the entire community. Because when you look at the uneducated youth in a country like Uganda, it portrays a bad image. So in my own opinion, it is our responsibility so that we could make sure these girls are not defiled. How? We look at the students themselves. They are the first people we should blame for this, because there is a pandemic. Yes, we understand. They are supposed to be home. They should know the reason as to why they are in school, and they can wait, because a pandemic is a factor beyond our own making. We look at the government. It's the role of government to look at these students have gone home. They could do a post-COVID implementation plan. Will they stay there doing nothing? Because I looked at the government of Uganda, it brought learning materials. They wanted the children to keep on online, on the right track, but these materials were not reaching. Like I told you, there is a gap between the rural and the urban setting. They were not reaching the rural setting. We look at the social workers. Have they played their role? We look at the community development officers. We look at the district education officers. They should not assume they could do a follow-up. These children have gone home. We have radios, we have TVs. They could keep on reminding them this is just for a period. We shall go back to school. We look at parents. Parents have assumed that it is the role of the teacher to shape their children. Even now they are crying, they should open schools because for them, they believe it is only a teacher who shapes the child. But like I told you, looking at the socialization process, parents are also agents of socialization. So it is their role as parents to show their children, yes, marriage is a good thing, but there is time for that. Then we look at the entire community. You as a community member, what percentage, the level of influence you've put in this? Because this child, socially, we look at a problem. When a problem happens, it is not affecting that child who has gotten married at an early age. Because this child will get married and finally fails in the marriage, will come back and bring a contemporary social problem like prostitution, theft, we look at abuse of drugs. So it is our responsibility, all of us. We look at the government, because when we look at the government is a medium and a mechanism through which the state operates. Like we entrusted the government with the state resources so that it could protect us, provide the social services to us, because for us we cannot do it by ourselves. So it has a higher influence. The students themselves, they have higher influence, yes, because there is evidence that there are those who didn't get pregnant. How did they do it? They are committed, they are assertive. So we could bring awareness, because we assume these children, they know when you play sex, live sex without protection, you get pregnant. So we could bring awareness, because there are factors which are constant. There is a certain age these children must be having sex, but we bring awareness to them when urgent contraceptives, most especially these students in higher education, level of education, we could do that. Then parents should also play their role, teaching them, because they are also agents of socialization. So they could do that, and the community members at large. So it is our responsibility as Ugandans that these children had to fail in the education course. So we are all responsibility, meaning that we didn't exhaust our responsibility to the maximum. So it is not an individual blame, it is not an individual responsibility. Now, like me, I'm a social worker. It is my role to move in villages. I advocate for girl child education. So I keep on telling them sex can wait. If you can't wait, you do this, you do that. So at the end of the day, they could continue with education. So it is an inclusive responsibility.
Okay, so let's go back to Robinson. Robinson, if the children of Uganda don't get good education today, if the students don't get quality education, in the end, who is going to pay the ultimate price? Who is going to bear the brunt for the suffering? So I'm going to request Namara to turn off her microphone again so we don't get any echoes as Robinson starts to make his submission.
Of course, when you go to school, it is us, the students, who benefit more. So you can't say that for you, a student, then if you go out of school, the government has a loss. Of course, one of the things is that the student himself is a direct beneficiary of the education which he gets. Then government comes in because it comes in as in a social aspect, but the one who's making a very big loss is the individual himself. However, the collection of very many individuals are the ones now who bring the biggest problem to the country. Because when all the students have gone out of school, like for example, these ones, like the 15 million who got out of school because of the pandemic, if the issue continues, even the country itself, the economic development will go down. Because when you look at some investors, they like looking at a country that is having educated network of people. So if they can see that really they have a good network of people they're coming to work with, that's when they also get morale of coming. So the direct beneficiary of education is the student. So indirectly, they also affects the economic development of the country, because those would be receiving foreign aid, the country would be receiving foreign aid, and those people get demoralized by looking at the state which is not educationally sounding. At this point, of course, the government also makes a very big loss on that.
Okay. So Namara, do you agree with what Robinson has just said?
You said?
Do you agree with the submission of Robinson that the students who don't go to school are going to suffer, but to some extent also the government will have to pay, to face some consequences, or they are not going to school? Namara, are you there?
I'm on.
So did you get the question?
Repeat the question.
What do you make of the submission that Robinson
I
has made?
didn't put the question.
That's what I'm trying to do. Just have to relax. So he says that if children
On the submission he has made.
okay, Robinson says that if children don't go to school, they are going to suffer. And then he says that to some extent, even the government will face some consequences for the children not going to school. I just want to get your idea. Do you agree with that?
Okay, fine. If I can come in, we are trying as much as possible. This is Augustine. We are trying as much as possible to see that we involved in the debate, but the network is letting us down.
Okay, we are happy to have you. You can make you can answer that question.
Yes, picking up from what Brother Robson was saying, that when schools close, who make the laws and is asserting that it is the children. Like any other philosopher, there is one philosopher who said that he who desires to shatter the development of a nation close a school. So that statement alone means that the whole generation, everything is going to die. People look at a school as just a building and maybe a class full of students, but education goes beyond that. That's why we grew up knowing, and our nursery teachers and primary teachers kept telling us and teaching us that education is the key to success. And the education I'm talking of is received from schools. So picking up from this kind of quote I've just used, now that the schools in Uganda are closed, this affects the downer person. This is going to not only affect that person, the student, but it is affecting the country at large, because it means you've closed up the lawyers. The lawyers are under lockdown. The agriculturists are under lockdown. The future teachers tomorrow are in lockdown. Like every profession is now under the lock. So it affects a lot. Not only the people, but it's affecting a generation. We are going to come out of this lockdown. We'll have a generation that is actually ignorant, a generation that does not understand. There will be that gap in the professionalism. People are going to be half-baked. And then a question to reflect on should be, what is going to be now the competence level of the people that are going to be employed as government and private entity workers? These are the people we are living in the lockdown. So without education, really the person is affected. We are closing a school affects the children, but at large, actually, it affects the nation. And the nation I'm talking about now, every person, it affects every person, it affects everyone. Thank you so much.
So you brought in a very important aspect, Lawrence. Sharon, please mute your microphone. Mute your microphone. So, Lawrence, you brought in a very important aspect, that of the closure of schools because of the lockdown, and I mean in the lockdown because of COVID. So I want to pick your mind on that. Do you think that there was enough reason to close schools because of COVID? Still with you, Lawrence.
Can I pick up that?
Yes, Lawrence, that was your question, actually.
Okay, fine. Yes, at a certain point, it was necessary to close up schools. But then we are seeing some countries close up schools, and then learnings continued, and they learned how to live with COVID. So to me, closing up schools was not the solution, actually. The solution was to look at how we can blend learning amidst COVID-19. Yeah, because now, look at now classes like the pre-primary. These students have been home for 2 years. It's a total mess. Right now, even if you ask like other minister or anyone that what's the calendar now, what is supposed to be done within a certain level of education, maybe primary or what, even the minister himself will tell you, I don't know what next. So closing a school was not the only solution. We could have things to do with blended learning. We can have maybe shifts, learning in shifts such that we reduce the population, because the whole idea here and argument is that the leaders are telling us that when you close up schools, you've decongested the environments, and then you can control the spread of the virus. But then what are the repercussions? They didn't look at the long-term effects of closing this school. I thought that if maybe there could be maybe shifts in education, having classes in shifts, you allow a certain group of people to come and study, and then others wait. That one could work better because it means at least you've reduced on the congestion in the classrooms. And then we could even have online studies. However much online is not also so much favorable to every person because of the higher data costs in the country we are living in, Uganda. But at least we could have a little bit of learning on online classes, so that at least learning continues, not necessarily to close up the schools. Because when you close a school, it means that the whole business is closed up. There is nothing that can go on. And then even the other issue that we could have done is enforcing. We could leave schools open, but then the government and all other stakeholders were supposed to just make sure that they make awareness. They make this known to every person, how to live amidst COVID-19. Tell the people to enforce these standard operating procedures. If we have all these standard operating procedures enforced, of course, when I say enforced, I'm meaning peaceful enforcement, not this kind of enforcement where you're going to bring tear gas and canisters and like guns, beat up people just because you're claiming that you're enforcing the SOPs. If we had these SOPs followed, the social distancing, the washing of hands and everything followed and enforced peacefully, when this person knows that a virus is deadly, education about the way, all this could not have, we could not even have resorted to closing schools. Right now we have closed, but what are now the repercussions, the implications of closing these schools are a lot, more than even the virus that we are fighting to close up the schools.
Okay, thank you. Now, who else is there? Is Robinson there? Robinson, are you there?
Even Pedison is around.
So I'll talk to Robinson.
Yes.
Even who?
Pardon?
Who did you just say is also around?
Pedison.
Okay, since we haven't heard from
Pedison. Pedison.
Yes, we haven't heard from Pedison, so let's listen in from Pedison. So Pedison, as a student, what message did you get?
Yeah.
If the government opens the markets, the government opens public transport, it opens almost everything and says these are going to operate with SOPs, but then keep schools closed. What kind of signal is the government sending to students who are studying in the country?
Thank you very much, sir. I will first apologize for being late. It's not my own error, but network error. And that one, I still push it to the level of education that we're enjoying in Uganda. Given that you were given a quality education, we would have developed our own networks and we would not be suffering from all this. So in regard to the question, I consider that one as government giving low priority to education because it said let markets be open and under the observation of SOPs. But sincerely speaking, there is no observation of SOPs in markets as compared to schools. In schools, it's where it can be controlled. It's where we can keep a social distance, we can facilitate hand washing, we can put on masks, and we can even wash hands. Unlike in the markets where everyone has his own business, you cannot maintain social distance. Here, let us leave the school is closed, it's open. Shows that they do not consider education as a priority. However, in the National Development Plan 3, government recognizes it to say that a well-educated, quote me clearly, that well-educated, skilled, and healthy nation will secure its future. But even though they can recognize that, they do not implement it. They are just giving quality, quantitative education, leaving alone quality. So once you say, let us open markets and we leave the schools closed, I fail to understand whether COVID-19 is real or it's just there to disguise. That's what I can submit about it.
Okay, that was a good submission. You are elaborate. So I want to still keep it with you and ask you something else. Apart from
Yes.
providing UPE and USE, what more do you think that the government of Uganda should provide for students and pupils across the country to make their education easier?
You said apart from UPE and USE?
Yes.
Wow.
What else should the government provide to make sure that the children of Uganda get better quality education and they can be competitive on the world market for jobs?
Yes, USE has been provided by the government. That is at secondary level, and at primary level, there is also provision. But we do not stop there. We need also to consider the tertiary institutions such that we can provide maybe some loans that have low interest or even free education like Libya had done it before. So we do not need to only concentrate on that lower section of education, but also the tertiary. So government should come on board to also uplift those students who have left the secondary institutions such that we increase on their skills. And education should not necessarily look at the theoretical item. We should also go practical, hands-on system of education such that we develop skills that will employ us and also be of a great achievement to the entire nation, because a nation that has skilled people secures its future rather than just the theoretical education that we are having.
Thank you. Let's now turn to Robinson himself. Robinson, now I think they should hand over to you. I want to get your views on this. The church and the mosque have built a number of schools across the country. Even today, there are still church-funded schools and mosque-funded schools. We also know that even a university, a couple of universities, including UCU, I funded by the church, and universities like IU funded by the mosque. What role do you think these institutions, the religious institutions, have to play in the education of children in this country?
Okay, as I mentioned before, when you asked me that is it government to be blamed for students failing, I replied and said that it is a collective effort of different stakeholders. I remember mentioning even religious leaders. So we know that a nation which is very stable, most of those nations that are stable, they always have religions in front of them. So that's why you can see that most of the schools are constructed based on the foundation of even churches themselves. They can organize, they collect some kind of finance, they go and construct schools, especially which have been started by their denominations. I can give an example of Catholic churches. They can sit down, organize. They even write proposals to their partners outside Uganda. They give them donations and they construct schools. All the work they are doing is also about uplifting the development of our country. Even other religions, when students are going to do the examinations, they call them like for a certain time, they go and sit with them, they share with them the word of God as they're wishing them success. They pray for them, and really you find that the students are booming in their academic performance, which means that the religious denominations, they also have a role to play. So when some people like the archbishops, the pastors, they go to schools, they are respected at that level. The students, of course, when they are advised by such people, they take the word as an important one, because sometimes you find they give them career guidance, they give them hope. So a student goes to class when he knows that he is spiritually stable. That's why on the timetables of schools, you find when there's time for chapel, because they see that a student is supposed to be spiritually upright so that he can succeed in his life. So I see that these religious leaders, they have also some roles to play in fostering education to our students. As we have said, that education
leads to change in behavior. So a student can also change in behavior spiritually, socially, and academically. So I support your view that also religious leaders have roles to play. Thank you.
Okay. Namara has been waiting for long. Sharon, are you there? Okay, so Sharon, Robinson, mute. Thank you. So Sharon, you take the view that religious institutions should use schools as an avenue for furthering their religion. Isn't this contradictory? I mean, if we are going to have students educated, shouldn't they get education that does not discriminate between religion or anything of that sort? Don't you fear that if you have a student who has been educated so much on the Islamic philosophy, they may end up reasoning the Islamic philosophy and then take decisions in that line that may not be in line with the national decisions? Or if a person is ultra-Catholic, or ultra-Anglican, or ultra-born again, doesn't it cause some sort of fear that if they are educated along that line, they could then say, I'm only going to serve those who are born again? And couldn't that be a problem for us as a country?
Thank you so much. And most as they are civil society organizations, and when you look at civil society organizations, the main goal at the end is development. So, like Mr. Robinson has said, that churches are building schools, it does not mean they are planting the doctrine of Christianity in the students. We look at Uganda as a country, even the world at large. We look at the public sector, we look at the private sector, we look at the civil sector. For the civil sector, we look at the CSOs. For example, we could look at churches, we look at individuals who come out. For instance, we could look at kingdoms. For instance, we look at the Kabaka Marathon. Every time they have a birthday, they contribute. So churches are CSOs, they come in to help. So they could provide land, because we have studied in schools where they are built on church land. They could construct schools. They could even sponsor some of the students up to the highest level of learning. So to me, I don't look it in that perspective. I look at a church as a civil society organization that is coming together. Remember, I told you development and solving of social problems in our society is not a government role only. It is a collection. We call it collective action. So it is a collective of individuals who come together. So churches come in as a civil society organization. Then we look at religion as an institution. Which role does it play? We all know religion shapes our behavior, it unites us. So it is coming in as a civil society organization, helping the development of the area. Because I've never seen a church that is going to construct a school where that church is not. Maybe if it is a diocese, but in most cases they do this, helping in the development. And remember, we said education is key in the development of the country. It works as an engine. So the church comes in here to help, like how the government comes in, then we look at the private sector also coming in. So to me, I don't think they're planting that doctrine of Christianity. It is good if someone opts to do that, because they believe religion shapes behavior. But in this context, I look at church, I look at a mosque, or any other religion as a civil society organization which is coming on ground to aid in the development, because me, I believe as a social worker, development is a collective action. It is not an individual responsibility. That's my submission.
Okay, please mute. Thank you. We are now going to get to the final parts of the final points of discussion, and we'll soon be concluding. So I want to go back to Pedison. So Pedison, I'm going to ask you, what role does an educated student have to play in their community? When you graduate and leave the university and go back to your village, what role are you supposed to play? Or is any student educated at the level of a university supposed to play?
I still didn't get you clearly, sir, due to network.
Okay, so I just said, you get me now?
Yes, I get you.
So you're educated up to the level of a university, and you are at the university where many students are educated to that level. Once you're educated as a university student, and then you go back home, go back to your community, go back to your village, wherever you come from, what role are you supposed to play as a student? I mean, as a former student and as a graduate, how can you impact your society?
Okay, thank you very much. And I would like to answer you by saying we need to be examples to the community. People who are lower than us in education, they need to see the right thing from us. So we need to behave in an intellectual way as graduates or people who have attained at least to some level, such that they pick the right thing from us. They also gain that spirit to go to school. It was to my dismay that during the last lockdown, I saw someone who had graduated with a certain qualification coming to a bar with a university gown. Moreover, holding a bachelor's, came to a bar with a university gown. He gave chance to all the drunkards to share with him that gown. So that type of character surely does not attract, because someone will look at how is a graduate behaving. Once you behave in such a way, one will see no good reason to also attain the level you are at. The youth have gone into dubious activities like alcoholism, being addicted to so many drugs, which has greatly affected them. And this is also affecting the spirit of those who are still coming, maybe at primary level, at secondary level, to a higher qualifications. So what the advice I give to those who have so far attained to some level, they need to behave as intellectuals. And also, we need to create a career guidance sessions. We call for youth seminars of those who have gone and those who have not gone to school. We tell them the advantages of going to school and maybe the disadvantages of being illiterate, such that those who are still in schools can develop the spirit of maintaining their status as students to complete education, and those who have left schools can also pick the spirit of joining. I will appreciate the youth who are involved in music that they already have a platform to communicate. Picking up one, she's Edrin K from Kasese, who has sung advocating for education. She has a song which says decision. In that song, she clearly says that the decision you make today will affect your future. She also mentions it and saying, go back to school, stay in school and complete. She also has another song which says, a girl, not a woman. She is trying to tell the youth, the young girls, to chase away men from them, to keep in school. Then we, the youth, that's what we are supposed to do, to advocate for education, people to stay in school, to complete school, and abandon all the others that may be obstacles to their education, so that maybe if they pick interest in them, they will pick them after their completion of school. That's what I can submit. Maybe to add on, also, the government also has a role to play there. Once I have graduated as an economist, as I'm to graduate, then government should also not leave me redundant in the village. They should at least create jobs such that those who are in school can pick morale that immediately after education, you pick up a job and you can now live a good life, such that they also see from that. Also, maybe the youth, we need not to wait for anything from government or government will do for us all. We also need to develop entrepreneurial skills such that we can earn something after our school, not to remain redundant in school. There is a man in my village who has spent 8 years on street. Now he's an example for people not going to school. You tell someone to go to school, he will pose you a question. After graduation, do you need me to be like the other one who has stayed on street for all that years? He has nothing he's doing. He's just there taking alcohol and others. So we, the youth, we need not to go into those dubious acts, but live an exemplary life. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's now listen into from Lawrence, because now that question is the same, and I want each of you to answer it. How can you people, after graduating, influence and impact your communities? So Lawrence, the floor is yours.
I'm Augustine, not Lawrence, so maybe a point of correction over there. I'm Augustine. Why is Augustine?
Why is Augustine? Sorry for the mishap. Okay,
it's fine. I will start by saying one thing. A person that is educated, a mind that is educated, will never think the same as the mind that has never gone to school. That's the very fundamental point, number one. So going to school, or for you attaining education, it means there and then the thinking is going to change. And then the question is, how are you going now to apply this kind of thinking to the community for people to benefit? Is now the biggest question. That's what now takes me back to what my brother, the former speaker, has just talked about, that we need to play a role model activity or something like that here. We need to show the community that actually going to school is of value, and every person should at least one day go to school. Why? When you go to school, you get land, you get skills, you get knowledge. So it means that the thinking is completely going to be different from this person that has not gone to school. Then taking it even to the political side of view, we are seeing that people that have ever gone to school are the people taking up whatever space within the political sphere. They are the people playing this game. You go to go, if you want to be nominated for any political office, let's say maybe the president or maybe the member of parliament, the very first thing they will say is that the lowest qualification or something you must have attained is senior 6, meaning a person that has not gone to school doesn't have that level of education, therefore is going to be eliminated from the political sphere. You will not exercise his right, he will not do anything. So now, we as graduates, what are we supposed now to do to see that we impact the community with the education we have got? I'm a learned person, I'm a person now who has the knowledge. Now it means that I'm supposed to engage more in things to do with community development. I can advocate for projects, I can come, like now I'm doing agriculture, I can come out as an extension officer. And then in so doing, it means I will be rendering the services to my people. I will be guiding people now how to do some kind of things. Simply that. Thank you.
Also, let's listen in now from Robinson, and then we shall finish with Sharon and get your conclusion. Yeah, we can hear you. Just speak up.
Okay, to me, I think when students have graduated at university and they are now in the villages, they have several roles that they can play. One of the issues that I can talk about is change of, of course, when you're sitting down and you're planning, maybe you're making the budget for a country, you can't just bring a layman to come and give contributions. You have to get some people at least who have attended school, who have got knowledge of budgeting, and you can't get knowledge of budgeting when you have not gone to school. So it means that after completing school, the knowledge that you have got, the skill that you have got, the behavior that has been attained by you, you go and apply, you transfer that knowledge practically. That's why you're crying that the education system should be practical, so that afterwards we go to our communities and we make sure that we apply what we have done, what we have learned, and we find that the economy will have changed. 2, we have political inclusions. If you have been studying at university like social sciences, you can go and vie for posts like political posts, so that you can be able to plan for for your community, like the MPs, you find that somebody has just completed senior 6 and wants to become an MP when he doesn't know the roles that he's supposed to play. But it is up to this level of education that you can attain good knowledge. You can even get good communication skills that you can go and apply to the community for proper development. Somebody just comes from nowhere, because currently LC3 chairperson, you can just become a chairperson when you have never gone to school. But those are the people even who can't be able to mention some of the devices they are going to use for constructing roads, and somebody's just there. You find that accountability, he doesn't know. So the education we attain, we go and apply it so that we can develop the economy. And that's why the topic for today was saying that to have a very good foundation of a state, we should have a network of youth that have studied. I think when the youth have studied, they can go and apply this knowledge so that the state can develop. Even you have some saying which says that the youth, this is a political saying, that the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. That is a statement that's always given by the leaders who are in service currently as a way of shying away the youth from vying for the same post. But I'd like to assure you that today, the youth are still the leaders of today, because after they have come from the university, now there are very many, they are with degrees, they are with the masters, they can also go and contest on those posts because they already qualify. That's why even Electoral Commission said that to be able to qualify for a certain post, you have to have a certain education level, which means that education has to be applied in that section. Then 3, we have said the role of education majorly is to change our behavior. So if we go to the community, we expect that the behavior of our graduates should be able to change the behaviors of the people they find there. We should work as role models. People should see some good things that we get from education by behaving properly, rather than promoting domestic violence. Those are the things we're supposed to avoid in our communities. Then you are supposed to move from the school. We go and apply what the knowledge you have got and create for ourselves jobs. You can go and look for some projects you find in your community and you engage the members. The community members themselves, they know that an educated person is different from them. So it's our role to go and show them that really, when you're educated, you can have a change which you can create in your community. So to me, I think this is what I can submit as per now. Thank you.
Sharon, it's your turn to respond to that question.
Yeah. Thank you. Reflecting to the education of its youth. Looking at Uganda's growing youth population, we have the potential to drive positive change to transform our community. We have the potential. But like we looked at the education system, we have been complaining of the education system, which is too much of theoretical. And remember, we said, looking at this, it is not an individual responsibility. So we as the youth, we also have to portray a positive image. When we go out there, we could try to be initiative, innovative. We could try to start up some things so that we could attract others to really upload education. Then we look at the community leaders. They should try their level best, play their roles to at least persuade, because the people who have left education, they say, why would I go branch after senior 4? I get my border, I will be earning per day, so I could do something. In villages, people look at educated people as failures, but we as youth, the government, the community members, like we said, it is a collective action. We are all stakeholders. We could try our level best to at least bring back education on board, because if we can argue, the education system of Uganda is too much of quantitative aspect. We have schools, we have students, big in numbers, because we see we are increasing, the enrollment is increasing. But what is taking place in those schools? So it is the role of government to make sure that it changes. Because even looking at the curriculum itself, the new curriculum is saying the school shall be awarding 20 marks. Then the examination board will be awarding 80 marks. Looking at that itself, the board will not look at the skill. They are still instilling the theoretical part of it. It would be at least 50% the school, because the school will be looking at the talent this student has, the skill this student has. Then the board can also add on. So the curriculum itself needs to be adjusted. Then we look at the motivation of the teachers. Yeah, we are looking at absenteeism happening in schools. What is the cause? We look at the low motivation. Just of recent, the president was advocating for science teachers. They are going to increase on their salary to 4 million. Yes, that's good. However, we are looking at the arts, because we don't assume the scientists are going to plan for this country. We are not going to assume the scientists are going to help, because we are going to live our history. Remember, politics is needed. So here, I urge that there should have been a fair increment in the salary, so that the teachers have to be motivated. We look at the accommodation. There are areas which have poor, the education system is low, is down. So we have to improve on that. When we look at the community leaders, they could find a way of training these young youth. We have radios, we have TVs. At least they bring them on board. Instead of being job seekers, we could be job creators. They bring entrepreneurial skills. They train the youth on how to be self-employed. We should remove that doctrine of saying after school I should get a job, so that we can also contribute to the country. Because when we look at the topic is saying the foundation of every state, education is key. Then even looking at the budget of the country, when they are allocating money, they should also look at the budget. How much are they allocating to the education sector, since we said it is an engine, so that education could produce the youth, because you look at the youth, they are the leaders of tomorrow. They are the young trees in the forest. So what type of youth are we bringing out? Yes, you have a degree, you can add. Are you going to put something on ground? Could you write good proposals and start a project? Are we investing in research? Because it is research, innovation, and technology. It is no longer a history of Napoleon now. It is not helping, because you looked at COVID. Even a mask, we almost, in the whole of Africa, we cannot make a vaccine, and we are saying we have chemists, we have this. So we should make sure that the education we are getting, I leave university when I can make what? A vaccine. I can make a mask, I can make a sanitizer, but I know you put on a mask, I don't know how to make it. That is the type of education we are advocating, that will make even the little children who are looking at us as their peers get interest. But you leave, you'll start to fry chapati. Now, why did you go to school? So this is the type of education we want. After leaving, I go and make a phone. I go and make a vehicle. So if we could improve in this, then we look at the budget. Has the country looked at it? Because you are looking at security. They are giving it a lot of money. What about the education, which is the engine? Because even these days, I'm seeing when they're advertising, they want those ones with the sciences in the security. It means now everything is rotating on education. So as I'm winding up, summing up the entire topic, for us, we are fine, the education is good, but we want that one which is too much of practical. I live here, I go and make a sanitizer, I go and make a vaccine. Then that will show the relevance of the education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you very much, Robinson. Thank you very much, Pedison. Is it Pedison? Thank you to all our wonderful panelists. I hope that the best among you makes it to the next level and represents the university. And I know that that will indeed be the case, because they will definitely choose the best. So to our dear viewers, thank you for always tuning in to this very wonderful discussion that we have. As always, we request you to go and subscribe to our channel, the Civ Space TV channel. There are a lot of discussions there, and that is a very educative channel. That you can
make one more submission in a conclusion, or maybe?
No, we are past that now, sir. So I'm going to end the discussion and thank the panelists and wish them the best in proceeding to the next round, and also wish you the best in your studies. I know universities opened a few days ago. All the best. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.